Hello, welcome to Movies I Love with yours truly, Nomfanelo. So, with this, I will be talking about the Mission Impossible movies. So, this video, I'll be focusing on the first three Mission Impossible movies. This is in honor of the latest installment of the franchise titled The Final Reckoning, coming out in theaters. So the first one came out in 1996. It was directed by Brian De Palma, who's known for films such as Carrie and The Untouchables. The second one was released in 2000. It was directed by John Woo, who's known for films such as Hard Target and Face Off. And the third one came out in 2006. That was directed and co written by J.J. Abrams. This was his directorial debut. They later go on to direct films such as the Star Trek with the 2009 movie and Star Wars The Force Awakens. And the films stars Tom Cruise and Ving Rhames. All right. So let's get into why I love these movies. So this might be both a positive and a negative, depending on how you look at it. But as a collective with these three films specifically, they have their distinct styles. Now, this is partly because you have three different directors who have their own distinct styles. So, with the first one, directed by Brian De Palma, was more of like a mystery, a whodunit, and it has Brian De Palma, some of his trademarks, notably the flash, the pans, and the slow mos and all that stuff. The second one, which was directed by John Woo, of course, has his trademark, notably the doves. That I would say is more of like a cheesy uh, blockbuster type movie, similar to the works that John Woo has made in terms of his American movies from the 90s till 2000s. And then the third one, of course, J.J. Abrams, is more of the mystery, thriller type movie with being more character driven, I suppose. And I guess with since this was his directorial debut, I would probably say the notable trademark is like the use of the flash forward, flashback, because that he previously done that with his TV shows such as Lost, I believe Alias, but notably Lost. So that was I find yeah, it's positive in a way because as like a franchise, like if you look at franchises today, most of them tend to be similar in regards to style and all that stuff. And there's always room to be unique and all that stuff. With the MCU, for example, one of the criticisms is that the films, even though it's directed by different people, tend to look the same. So I guess on that front, it's appreciated with these three movies of Mission Impossible. But maybe on the negative side is that there's no consistency because it seems like every like film, at least these three films, they kind of got to do whatever they wanted essentially. While like with the later half of the movies was a bit more consistent on that, but that could be also about positive and negative again. Depends on how you look at it, but I would say for me, I appreciate because at least it shows like the directing style depending on who's directing. At least with these three films and all that stuff. But yeah, there is room for improvement in terms of being consistent. But I appreciate it for what they were essentially. And let's talk about Ethan Hunt. So Tom Cruise plays the lead in these films as Ethan Hunt. And yeah, I would say Tom Cruise did a great job with the role and all that stuff. The character is very, I would say, charismatic when he needs to be. He's always quick on his feet, tends to improv in all that stuff. Um, we see that a lot with the first movie when it came to the use of the disc. There was that scene where he was doing like the magic trick, and then the other guy was like wondering, like, "Oh, where's the disc?" Like, and all that stuff. So that was a fun scene with that one, and also to going on with the first movie with the scene when when we first see him meeting with Kittredge. That was quite the intense scene because because clearly shows that the character is under pressure, given that the majority of his crew was essentially eliminated, and it seemed like Kittredge was going to put the blame on Ethan Hunt. But then we see, I guess, as it reveals itself that Ethan Hunt knew where the other agents would be inside that restaurant and was able to escape with that chewing gum that was explosive and all that stuff. So that's a cool. I would say it's a cool moment and all that stuff. And yeah, and then I would say, like, as the lead, he's quite captivating to watch with the character. I think partly because of Tom Cruise and all that stuff, but also to love how he's able to improv, be quick on his feet, while also in ways being the smartest person in the room and all that stuff. But yeah, I would say that is fascinating to watch. Also to Luther. So Luther, I guess, is introduced in the first movie where he is the computer hacker, I suppose. So he's very good at what he does, and he's also to works on the field as well too. I appreciate that with the third movie, we get to see more time of Luther with Ethan Hunt, and you get to learn a bit more about him in ways because it seems like he, at that point, loves what he's doing, doesn't want to have any attachments and all that stuff because he tries to convince Ethan to essentially be single and all that stuff. But then he later on warms up to the idea of Ethan having a relationship with Julie despite the risk and all that stuff of being an agent. So yeah, like I would say with Tom Cruise, Ving Rhames, they have great chemistry and all that stuff with their characters. So, and it's interesting to see how their relationship has unfolded, at least amongst these three films. But yeah, those are fun. Also, too, so amongst the love interests, in at least in these three movies, I would say Julia probably is the best one. I mean, it's quite obvious because she humbles Ethan Hunt essentially, and we get to see in the third one a softer side of his character through Julia and all that stuff. And I loved that even though she doesn't have, she's not an agent, she's a nurse essentially. But I loved her moment towards the end of the third movie when she essentially has to fight the bad guys and all that stuff. So that was quite fascinating to watch because I remember seeing that in the theater at the time. I was like, whoa, 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 that's intense. And yeah, I would say Michelle Monaghan did a great job with her performance as Julia and all that stuff. And because Nyla, played by Tandy Wayne Newton, I thought she's fine. I don't have like issues with her character. I would say like the female characters at this point, I guess they're not bad, I suppose. And I guess they show in ways different sides of Ethan. Um and all that stuff. Action scenes, of course, that's also another aspect I loved of these movies. I would say out of the three, obviously the second one has the most action sequences, very action. Of course, when you have John Woo, who is a legend in his own right in regards to action movies, of course that's going to be on top essentially. Like particularly with when it came to the last act of the movie, that was quite fun to watch. I would say the first one didn't really had too much action need type stuff. I would say probably that last the train sequence towards the end with all the helicopters and all that stuff. I would say it's the big action set piece for that movie, which was fun to watch. And the third movie, I would say, yeah, the whole Shanghai sequence. That's in the later half of the movie. That was quite fun to see. And stunts, of course. So, yeah, the stunts essentially are a staple in this franchise, particularly with Ethan Hunt doing them, essentially. So, the first one that stood out to me was when they were trying to get the disc at Langley at CIA headquarters. I imagine that was not easy to pull it off when Ethan has to essentially be steady and all that stuff while his life is in the hands of the other agent. I'm blanking on his name, but yeah, that was quite tense scene to see. And the second one, obviously, I would have to say the opening sequence with Ethan doing the rock climbing without the proper equipment. But I mean, of course, Ethan could pull it off and all that stuff. So yeah, like I remember, yeah, like, cause seeing that for the first time, I was like, wow, that's quite intense. Cause, cause I imagine, cause I wondered though, like while filming it, did they actually had wire work? I imagine they had to for insurance reasons, but if Tom Cruise actually did that stunt for real without any wires or ropes and all this stuff, I mean that's courageous right there. I mean insane, but courageous. And the third one is the one where he had to jump off they're in Shanghai where he's trying to get the rabbit's foot where Ethan has to do that jump to another building and all that stuff. Yeah, that was quite the moment there as well too. The villains I would say throughout the franchise are hit and miss, I would say, but for me the villain that stands out and I would say arguably for the franchise as a whole, at least so far, is Owen Davian, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, wow, like he was quite captivating as the villain in the third movie because I liked how with Davian essentially challenges Ethan, even though you may not have like the skills in terms of physicality compared to the other villains in this franchise, but I would say on an emotional level, on a psychological level, yeah, like he's intense. Like with that whole opening sequence where essentially he is torturing Ethan, I'm like, that's insane with the whole countdown. It's like menacing. It's menacing. And I would say with Jim Phelps, um, so I've seen many people complain. I believe the person that originally played Jim Phelps in the TV show, and there were other complaints where they didn't like the direction of the character when it was revealed towards the Act Three, essentially, where he's the villain this whole time. So I have not seen the TV show, so I don't really have that connection. For me, like when I first saw, I'm like, whoa, like this just came out of nowhere. Like it was quite interesting because I bet like with any other movie, like it would have been acceptable. But I guess because of the history of the franchise with the TV show and all that stuff. People were not happy by that. I mean, had I seen the TV series, which I believe it's on Pluto TV, if you guys want to check that out. But had I seen the show, maybe I would share those similar sentiments. But since I have not seen the series, I don't share those same opinions. But I do understand why some people were frustrated with that decision. And with Sean, in the second one, is he's a cheesy villain. I would say he essentially wants to sell the virus for money, essentially, while also to having like a personal gripe with Ethan because of Nyla. Like again, it was all cheesy. I would say, but yeah, I don't really have much more thoughts on Sean. Like he's interesting to watch and all that stuff, but as a villain, quite cheesy, I would say, but fun to watch. And also, too, what I loved, the music is solid. The first one was composed by Danny Elfman. The two members from U2, I can't remember the names right now. They did the theme song for the first movie, was great. The second one, you had Hans Zimmer did the score for that, which Loki is, I would say, an underrated score by Hans Zimmer. Because I watched a few months ago the concert film in theaters, which is fascinating. I recommend you guys check it out if it's available on demand somewhere. But yeah, that's fun. And Limp Bizkit did the theme song for the second one. I was listening to that the other day. And I'm like, oh, this is quite catchy with this one. And the third one, Michael Giacchino did the score for this. I mean, no surprise since he's worked with J.J. Abrams on the TV shows at that point. I would say it's engaging with the music cues for all of those movies. And lastly, it's not in the movie specifically, but when Ben Stiller did the parody um, of Mission Impossible 2 for the MTV Movie Awards. I believe he hosted, I'm not sure if he hosted that year. But that was hilarious. Where essentially he was what Tom Cruise's stuntman. That's hilarious. That was just fun to watch. Now let's get into my critiques on these movies. So I know many people, I'm sure a lot of people would say that out of all the movies thus far, the second one is the worst one. I mean, for obvious reasons, yeah, there's more negatives than positives. Um, I think largely because of the tone, maybe because with John Woo with his style just does not resonate in relation to the rest of the series and all that stuff. For me, like the second one is a guilty pleasure and all that stuff. But otherwise, I would say that the second one is very cheesy. It's quite convoluted in regards to the plot. With the whole virus thing was just ridiculous how that was executed, and also too it had a lot of uses of the is mask off or face face off, maybe in the case of John Woo when it did a lot of that stuff. I was just like, man, no, 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 no. But I would say, yeah, the second one is fun to watch, even though, yeah, it's kind of corny and cheesy and convoluted and all that stuff. Um, and speaking with the second one with Billy, oh my gosh, I did not like that character at all. It just was quite annoying. Essentially, was not helpful. And I do want to point out that every time when they show him in the helicopter doing that same look was hilarious. I don't know if that was intentional or if they used the same shot. I don't know that. That was just hilarious. But I was not a fan of that character. Um, and I do think, yeah, with Nyla, could have been workshopped a bit more. I remember seeing somewhere that Tandy Wayne Newton said in an interview that I guess she didn't really had the best time working on that movie and all that stuff, and pointed out how the dialogue was just terrible, but mentioned that Tom Cruise was trying to do what he can essentially, but just didn't pan out and all that stuff. But yeah, 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 I would say. Even though, like I've said, the second one is rough, it's still enjoyable to watch if you just want to turn off your brain and just sit back and relax, essentially. And yeah, and as I point out, the mask, not just in the second movie, but just overall, can be, you have to throw suspension of disbelief essentially. Because it's quite clear, like, you have, like, the other actors, I guess, in the character before revealing, oh, it's somebody else wearing the mask and all that stuff. But because you wonder, like, how are the masks that good though? It's impossible and all that stuff, but it is what it is, I suppose. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the first three Mission Impossible movies. So for the next movies I love video, I'll be focusing on Mission Impossible 4, 5, and 6. So stay tuned for that one. So I would love to know your comments. What do you guys think about the first three movies? Let me know in the comments section. Also, too, if you want to support me, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/Nomfanelo, where you could donate either monthly or one time. But also, too, you could follow me there where I do make posts exclusive on the platform and all that stuff, so you could check it out there. Also, too, if you want to follow me on social media, my links are in the description. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you on the next one.